Welcome to Leading with Artivism. Leading with Artivism is a live monthly interview series created and curated by Poet Gold in collaboration with Arts Mid-Hudson, featuring a diverse mix of artivists, artist activists who have taken up the charge through their art to highlight social issues. We invite you to ask questions and get an inside look at the hearts and minds of these courageous creatives.
Hi, I'm Poet Gold, and I'm in the hot seat tonight. So I want to introduce to you this wonderful gentleman that's going to interview me tonight. His name is Harrison Brisbon-McKinnon. So I'm going to let you take it over.
Hi everyone, my name is Harrison Brisbon-McKinnon, and I am a freshman at Vassar College. I'm currently studying gender theory and environment and how those two things intersect. I am a board member at the Artivist, and I am also a commissioner for public arts in Poughkeepsie. I'm very excited to put Poet Gold in the hot seat tonight.
Yes, indeed.
So are we excited for tonight?
Yeah!
Let's get started. So, could you begin with talking about the very beginning? And before we got online, we talked about how every great idea begins with a seed, and every great idea turns into a fruitful career. Could you tell us a little bit about those first seeds and how they grew to bloom?
Well, I was always exposed to the arts through my family, through my parents. My mom's a visual artist, and so everything that they could put me in, I was in. You know, I was on all the little shows, the puppet shows on television. I'm going to date myself now. Folks are going to go Google this. Wonderama, you know. I always wanted to be on Zoom. I never got into come on to Zoom. Never got to Zoom. But I was on all those little, children's shows when I was a child. And they just allowed me to explore, who I am as an artist. I don't even think I really understood that I was an artist. I just loved being in the arts. And I'm just grateful that they supported that and nurtured that. And as I got a little older, about 10 years old, my mom worked with a gentleman by the name of Felipe Luciano, who was one of the original Young Lords Party. He was engaged in that, as well as the Last Poets. And so I had some really great early influences, not only in the arts, but also as an art activist as well.
Wonderful. And so you have this very rich arts background. And I want to ask you, how do you now, with this wonderful rich background, get young people excited about art?
How do I get them excited about art? I like to be real. I like to be very real. I'm in a couple of schools out in Staten Island, working with some great nonprofits, Sundog Theater, as well as the Alice Austin House. We do through Sundog a anti-violence program through the arts, and with Alice Austin, we do an Audre Lorde program with multiplicity of identity through the arts. And you're touching middle schools, but I always approach it with, I was a child, and I never forget that. I never forget the child within me. She comes out often, and I think that's what connects me with youth. I don't come in a lot as the adult, quote unquote, in the room. I come from a place, I like to meet students where they are in order to get them to where I hope I can get them to be. But at first, I want to meet you where you are, no matter where you are, because we get all kinds of dynamics in a room. And so, but I love youth. I love youth. I love the little girl in me, and so, so I just love just trying to help them, protect them, and serve them.
Yeah, I think it's really critical, especially as creatives, to nurture the inner child in us. And my inner child often needs to be engaged and heard. And you talk about how your inner child often comes out. Mm-hmm. And how do you, or when do you feel most engaged or most heard?
When do I feel most engaged and most heard? I don't think I have a most moment. Um, you know, when I'm performing, I know that there's a captive audience. And so for me, oftentimes, I'm trying to be a collective voice versus I'm in there, but I want to incorporate um, someone who feels like they didn't have the opportunity to express what it is they wanted to express. I may have a conversation with a homeless person, or I may have a conversation with a person that be upset that day or angry that day, and that may turn out to be a poem. But I'm interpreting what they said through my work, their feelings, their emotions, and then connecting with that and going, I wonder if I ever felt that way at any point in my journey. How can I let the world know that this human being exists in that capacity, and maybe we need to connect on that level. Sometimes it's intentional. It wasn't always. It was just something I always did as a child, and I'll be honest with you. At one point, it was frustrating. Because I would ask myself, why am I like this? Why do I give a damn? Really, it's like, why? I really, like, why can't I just walk away? And I had an incident with someone littered on the Staten Island ferry. And littering really bugs me. I don't know why. I don't know what it is, but it hurts really deeply when I see someone just throw something on the ground with a disregard, for the earth, for the environment. It hurts us all. When you think about dirty streets, dirty roads, it hurts us all. Your action can affect me, can affect the audience. It hurts us all. We are all interconnected. And for whatever reason, I've always known that and have felt that deeply as a child. And it's just something I've never been able to just sort of get off my shoulder. Believe me, I've tried. I've tried because it's troublesome.
It's good to hear that your hero's journey isn't in isolation, isn't in a vacuum. You've had great people by your side and great people that you wouldn't expect to inspire and create poems that challenge what we ignore, like littering, just thinking about self instead of thinking about how you exist in a system, as a living being, as I've come to understand the earth to be. But sometimes we find ourselves grappling with battles alone, or at least we feel like we're alone. And I would like for you to paint the scene of one of your physical battles.
Yeah, a physical battle, which is a daily. It truly is. It's a daily battle for me. I smile, and I think part of that also is so that I can live in a space of joy, for myself, because it's sometimes it's quite hard. Like today was quite hard, just walking, because my disease is an immune disease, and it attacks not only my bones, it starts with the tissues first. So it's in my rib cage, and today was a day where breathing was labored. It was difficult, to walk a block or two, because I actually can feel what it feels like in my rib cage. And so, there are days which is very challenging, and you do feel sometimes, was anybody else feeling this? And you're smiling going, oh man, I'm hurting today. But you get through it, because on the other side, in my brain, there's work to be done. There's work to be done, and that's what I always tell myself. There's work to be done. I did not create this world. I'm so blessed by being present in it with someone like yourself, with my feral cats. I'm blessed to be present in it. And so there's work to be done. And that's what gets me through.
I think that's powerful stuff. When the world profits off of hate and disunity, the choice to smile and focus on joy and gratitude is truly a rebellious fight. And I love that spirit. And I think that that pushback, that rebelliousness is embodied in a lot of artists of color. And I want to know what your thoughts on how we can promote like art opportunities in institutions for artists of color who want to join together on this rebellious fight of Black joy.
Well, I think that artists are doing it. You know, there are a lot of different artists. There's a wonderful woman by the name of Taina Seeley, who is so absolutely incredible, who does sort of like revolutionary work. I think also that it's a lot of work. You know, this goes back to my question of why am I doing this? And, you know, to sort of be an artivist organically, it's a lot of work. You do get fatigue sometimes, and you should back up, step away. You know, with anything, you get fatigue going to a regular 9-to-5 job. Then you should. My father used to say when I was younger, and he used to tell me, "You have banking hours." And I guess when he was growing up, bankers had flexibility, and so because if I wasn't feeling well, I wasn't going in. That's it. You know, I needed a mental health day because I knew that I could not serve you as an employee if I'm not in my best space. And I'm going to give you 200% of me, you know, and make your environment shine. But I also need to be in my best space in order to do that. So if I need a day, we should let that person take a day because then they're going to give you tenfold. But if you keep taking and taking and taking, then they're going to implode to explode.
I think that's the natural process of stars. When they get too stressed, they explode.
Right.
So
Right.
I guess when you stress very talent, they explode. But how did you come to this idea of Sabbath and rest? There had to be a moment in your life, or I imagine there's a moment in your life where it's like, I need a break. And so when did you start fighting that fight?
It didn't come through art. It came through an uncomfortable situation. You know, where someone said something to me in public that I was working with, and I recognized my worth. And I said, no, I'm not going to do that. I'm not going to do that. And I began taking summers off. And at the same time, my mom was battling some illness at that time in her life. So it was just that tsunami that happened. One thing emotionally, and then you find out some other information. You go, okay, no, I don't need to do this, and I'll take the accountability. I'll deal with I'm gonna deal with whatever the fallout is going to be. But and it really has nothing to do with. I think we all get to that place in our life, but sometimes we don't. We're afraid to take the accountability for the decision that we make. We feel like perhaps that we won't come out on the other side. And I always say to people that if you are walking, you once crawled when we were babies in a crib. And we would look at those bars and we would crawl over those bars and we would fall and bust out little bum bum. And somebody would pick us up and put us back in and we'd look through the bars again and we said, I am going to walk like those human beings did. And we'd climb out again and we'd fall again, but we kept trying and then eventually we'd be walking. And so that's how I got to that space. I was upset, I was hurt, I was hurt. And I said, you matter more. So do something to show yourself that you matter more. And I decided, okay, well, I won't work summers anymore.
I think all of your stories are imbued with like such grace and elegance, and it's clear that you have amazing sense of self. And I want to gain some insight on how that translates into your work. How do you imbue your work and your life and your conversations with your essence? And what is your essence?
What is my essence? I haven't looked in the mirror and said, what is your essence, girl? Tell me about your essence. Wow, that's a question. It's like we teach the kids, right? In the Audre Lorde class, where Audre Lorde had this great thing where she felt like she's not one person, just as one identity. But we're groomed as being, you need to be just one thing. You have to be this one thing. You have to have this one career. You know, you can't identify with maybe being black, being a lesbian, being disabled, being a woman, being a chef, or being a tap dancer, or being whatever those many things that you are. That's sort of looked at sometimes being irresponsible. Jack of all trades, but an expert at none, right? So, for me, I think, and this may sound very strange, but one of the greatest gifts given to me, yes, I could change it. I would want to change it if there's a cure, but there isn't. My illness. Because it allowed me, I believe, to see things that others don't see. It allowed me to feel things that others don't feel. And so I have a tendency to see behind the eyes. You know?
Yeah.
See behind the eyes. And just, and I think that that's what my essence is. Look at that. See how you did that? Give that up for him. See how you did that? You know? Yeah, great question.
Well, I'm in awe a little bit.
I'm in awe of you.
And I just want to let you know that the phrase is jack of all trades, but the master of none is better than a master of one. So there you go.
I love it.
You got a good thing going on there. And this idea of being able to see more when we have more identities is an idea that's been explored a lot in standpoint theory. And I think it's really cool that there's all these people sitting in labs who are talking about this stuff, going to lectures, but you have lived it. You have lived and breathed your many identities, and you've chosen all of them. You chose to live all of them, which I'm sure is a weight, having all those identities.
Well, I don't look at it really as a weight, you know, because it's fluid, you know. It's fluid for me. It's not, who am I today? Okay, who's gonna be this tomorrow? It's not like that in my head. It's just me accepting me, and so I walk in the room with that. I feel if I can accept me, then I can accept you. If I can't accept me, then I'm going to reject you. I may see something negative about you first before I see something positive about you. I may fear you before I can love you. You know, and so my self-acceptance allows me to be vulnerable, and it allows me not to walk into the room with the wall. I don't like walls. You know, they're uncomfortable. You know, I mean, if you really think about who we are as people, the walls that we build within ourselves make us anxious. We walk into a space nervous. You know, we walk into a space uncomfortable because we've built the wall. Whether we're hiding behind it, you know, because we don't want to be vulnerable, and I get it. You know, we talked about vulnerability today at school. You know, trying to just get kids to just share a simple I am poem, you know? And I said it's okay to be vulnerable. You know, I get it. IG is mean, you know, and that's their world. You know, I didn't have that growing up, but you guys, you know, you do. And sometimes people are not nice. Sometimes adults aren't nice. You know, sometimes we're just mean. Really, for what? You know.
Perhaps that meanness is part of their wall.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
All the time. All the time.
So I'm listening to your story, and it's reminding me a lot of people that I went to school with in Poughkeepsie, people who hold those many fluid identities that build them up and make them who they are, and accept their story doesn't look quite like yours. Mm-hmm. And I like to think that arts could be helpful for the people that I live my life with. How do you think arts can influence the residents of Poughkeepsie to make sure that they feel like they belong here in this world, in this city? They don't need walls. They can be everything that they are. Show up who they are. Perfect.
Right. Yeah. And now I want to say one thing about that. It's not sort of like this Pollyanna, you know, perspective. You know, there's work. You know, there's self work, there's community work, but I think the arts can be integral in making the connections happen. One of my first poems in this area is a poem called Poughkeepsie, My Kipsey. And one of the reasons I wrote it, I was inspired by a young person, and I asked them, what do you think about Poughkeepsie? I said, I love it here. And she looked at me and said, Poughkeepsie's dark. And I thought to myself, wow. I said, how old are you? I said, 9. Poughkeepsie's dark. Okay. And so I heard in that an adult voice, the projection of the adult, the child in the environments of the adult, listening to the adults, what we pour in is what comes out. And so I said, well, I don't see Poughkeepsie that way. I said, I see some really beautiful buildings. I said, do you ever look at the buildings? I said, there's some really great architecture here. But I said buildings. I didn't say architecture to the 9-year-old, But I said, well, I really like it. I think it can be something. I said, I think it's going to be something for me. I said, I'm going to make it something. And I'm going to show you that it's not always dark. And so I wrote about the things in that poem that I found beautiful. And the stories that people were telling me that I found beautiful. The things I didn't know, the history of the place that intrigued me, to learn more, to connect. But what was interesting about it is that I think sometimes I got a little pushback because I said Poughkeepsie, my Kipsey. And so I wasn't coming into a space and sort of going, this is mine. This was the perspective through the lens that I was looking at. And so through the years, I still say my Kipsey, but by the time I get to the end, I say our Kipsey, because now I'm more part of a community.
I grew up with the same perspective as the 9-year-old, and I've learned to love my city and that it's has a rich history and some amazing, talented people in it. And I would like you to take us to one of those moments where you looked around and you saw my beautiful city, our beautiful city.
It's our beautiful city.
And you fell in love with it. What were one of those moments?
A couple of things. I got off the Metro North, right? And I love Japanese food, and I like sake too. So there was a Japanese restaurant, and there aren't a lot of Japanese restaurants in small towns across America. So I felt like, okay, there's a Japanese. You can find a Chinese restaurant. You can always find a pizza shop. You may not always find a Japanese restaurant. So that said to me, okay, there's some progression here. And I walked up the block, and I saw a mural on both sides of the street. There was I don't know if Nelson Mandela was up yet. There was a mural up on one side across the street, which I later learned is Nesta Madeline Goitia's work, and then there was the mural that's on Main Street Mural Square by Frank. And Frank, I'm sorry, I'm going to do it again. Palea? Yes, Palea, his work. And so I said to myself, art on the wall. I was doing these little check boxes saying, art on the wall. There's a place where there's art on the wall. Okay. Lets me know about the mindset and the spirit of the place, And then the Hudson River. I grew up in Washington Heights. I was born in the Bronx, grew up in Washington Heights next to the river, literally next to the George Washington Bridge, a couple of blocks down from there. And I spent a lot of times with my brother and, my sister and the neighborhood kids. And we were sort of like Fat Albert and Little Rascals all rolled up into one. And we'd sit by the riverbanks of the Hudson and I tell stories. We were 13, 14 years old and trying to keep everybody out of trouble and out of gangs. And so my brother and my cousin said to me, you really like it up here. It's going to remind you of when we were kids. And my brother kept saying, there's a bridge. There's a bridge that says it's really beautiful. It reminds me of the G-Dubs. I said, okay. And he was right. It checked off the boxes for me. And when I came, I didn't leave. And that was about 15, 16 years ago.
I think I'm sure we're all glad to have you here. It's been wonderful feeling your influence here in Poughkeepsie. But I'm a little more curious about your life before Poughkeepsie.
Before Poughkeepsie, okay. My life before Poughkeepsie. Let's see, let me do this real quick. 60 seconds. How much time we have now? Okay. Well, how far back do you want to go? Do you want to go, like, childhood? Do you want to go? I did a stint in corporate America for a while. I went to business administrative school, and because I like to get a job, I like money, so I noticed that some of my high school friends who had already graduated before me were coming back to visit, and they were all looking for work and couldn't find work, and that didn't make sense to me. You just spent 4 years in school and you can't find work. So I said, let me first go get some skills so I can get a job. So I did that, was working for a company called Artivist for a while and wanted to go back to school. And I went back to school to study broadcasting and communication broadcasting. And then that's when I got ill. And I had to leave, and I had a number of surgeries. I spent most of my 20s and a good portion of my 30s in and out of hospitals. Getting bones replaced and screws and all that kind of stuff. And then I wanted to go back to work. I like working. My mother just had a conversation with me last night. She told me to slow down. I said, one day it's all gonna stop. So I'll slow down then. But I'm good for right now. So that's sort of, and then I raised 2 beautiful girls, co-parented 2 beautiful girls. Relationship didn't work out, but that's okay. What do they say? It's better to be loved than what is this expression? You probably know it. It's better to
love and lost. What is
loved and lost?
Never to be loved at all. So I felt love deeply, and I'm so grateful for that. And so poetry became my new mistress, so to speak, and serves me well. Serves me really tremendously well. And so that's like in a nutshell.
I think it's really interesting where a lot of people think is the end in their life. I try to argue that it's the end of something, but with every death there is a birth.
Yes.
And it seems like you've had a lot of deaths and births in your lifetime.
Yes. But the phoenix always rises, right?
The phoenix always rises
out of the fire. I have a great mentor. My name is Byron Nelson, and I think I heard this from him first. He had mentioned that, or maybe someone mentioned it to him. He had mentioned that when you think you get to the end, when you're trying to accomplish a goal, that's when you're going to see the next horizon. And when you get to that horizon, you're going to see another one. So you may think like, oh, this is what I want to do. I want to be a poet. But so many beautiful things have come out of that. I became a poet out of necessity. I was always in the arts all of my life. I've always been a writer, songwriter, did the band thing, all of that. But when I got into Poughkeepsie, when I arrived at Poughkeepsie, I was in a valley, emotionally. I was in a valley. And I knew I needed to spend time with myself. And the writing was cathartic. And I wrote endlessly, just 24 hours a day. I was up all night, just writing. So thus my first book, When My Soul Speaks, I Scribe. Because my soul was speaking. My heart was broken. I wanted to get it all out. I was trying to figure out, who am I now? Who am I now? What you doing, girl? Where you gonna go? What you gonna build? Who am I now? And I said, embrace that writer in you. Embrace that songwriter in you. And you've always, when my band was playing, I would always stop and say, I just want to share some words. And I'd share a poem, and that was a real part of me. And so I decided, instead of tiptoeing around it, that I was going to surrender to it, trust it, embrace it, and see where it was going to lead me. But I also knew that I didn't want it to be a hobby. Yeah. That I needed to eat. I needed to pay my bills.
Right.
And so I needed to respect the craft, develop the craft, pay attention to my audience, to understand how my words impact others, because initially I didn't. Sometimes in my performances, people come to me and they're crying, and I didn't understand why at first, because I'm thinking, you know, I'm pouring this stuff out. And but then I realized we are all processing. You know, we're all holding stuff, and sometimes some things allow us to release that. And so if I'm a vessel for that, then that's okay. I've learned to be okay with that, and I just want to give you a hug, you know, in that process when it happens, if you allow me to.
Well, I'm glad you took the deep dive into this work. I want to know if there was ever a moment where you, after you took the dive, where you ever had doubts or ever had concerns. And if you're here doing this amazing work now, so you kept going. But sometimes I'm talking to people and they get worried that they're not making the right steps in their life, even though they're passionate about it. Mm-hmm. How do people fight those fears?
I call that Rufus. It's I'm gonna be working on a book. I'm working on this book. It's one poem, might be the poem, and it's going to be I guess a motivational, inspirational type book based on the content of the poem. And so there's a acronym Rufus, robbing you from ultimate success. And so I do this in one of my Be the Poem workshops. There's a certain amount of negative thoughts that we all organically go through every day. This is science, you know, my glasses. And so in understanding that you wake up in the morning and you may look in the mirror and go, I look terrible. Now, you have nothing to do with that. That's just our brain. That's just what it is. But how you can combat it, there's certain ways that you can, you know, overcome that. And so Rufus is robbing you from ultimate success. That's that voice that we all have that's saying, you can't be this today, or you have some doubt, or you're going for a promotion and you don't think you're going to get it. And that's Rufus. Rufus, boom, 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 needs to go into the doghouse and sit down and be quiet, you know? And so there are things that I tell people you can practice, you know, not just practice positivity. You have to develop like a muscle with action to affirm the direction that you want to go into. And you have to be intentional about it. I believe you should be intentional about it. You know, I like using the word should. Someone taught me that, and I get it when they taught me that. Tell me you should. But, you know, you would hope to be intentional about it in order to affirm the direction that you want to go into your life. And that's how you begin to overcome some of those fears. So it's like after every surgery, you know, I have. And I say to the PT people, I'm going to cry. I said, I'm going to cry for a couple of reasons. One, because it hurts. Okay? Secondly, the more tears I generate, it's going to release endorphins in my body, which is the feel-good medicine, the dopamine. It's natural. It means I'll ask you for one less pill while I'm in this hospital, right? You know, but I'm going to cry, I'm going to bawl, because the first 15 steps are hard. They're hard. They're hard on the body. You know, they're hard on the mind, but I'm going to take them. And oftentimes, the PT people are like, oh my God, are you okay? I said, I'm fine. I told you this up front. You know, let me be the process of fixing myself, you know? And so, but I'm affirming the direction I need to go in. I could say, you know, I need you to let me lay here a couple of days because I know what's coming. You know, I usually do that the first day. You know, the insurance wants you up and out, they cut you open, and they're like, get up out of bed, you're going home. You know, you're like, wait a minute, you know? So that first day, I'm usually like, let's slow down, folks. I've been down this road too many times. I just don't bounce back like that. But I'm going to work through this. I'm going to work through it pretty quickly because I practice it. So you take the noise in your head, you tell it to be quiet, more or less, but that's not good enough. You have to put something in front of you that's going to take you in a direction, a baby step, not a huge step. You know, you want to run 10 miles, you can't go out there and run 10 miles tomorrow. You know, run a quarter of a mile and see how it goes. But do it so that you can, at the end of the day, pat yourself on the back and say, okay, okay, I think I did something. I made a step in the direction of my life that I wanted to go into.
I'm grateful for being able to do this because now I have all this great inspiration to take home and write on my own work. And I want to know how your poetry and all of your art has evolved with your own sense of self. And what I'm learning is that as people evolve, so does their work, maybe in parallel ways or divergent ways. But I want to know what your pattern is like.
My pattern. Okay, my art pattern is a little crazy. I'm a night owl. So, and that can be very painful at times. You know, because sometimes you have to get up early in the morning, and if you're going to sleep at 3 o'clock in the morning, you have to get up at 4 in the morning, then you have to make it work. But I started with When My Soul Speaks, I Scribe Poetry, right? My first body of work that I felt like, yes, I can put this out. The writing was truthful, but the writing wasn't really my best. But I wasn't at a place from a writer's perspective where I wasn't thinking about best. You know what I'm saying? I was just thinking about defining this new being. So they're poems and they're like, don't feel bad for me. When my soul speaks, I scribe poetry. Pokemon Marketsi, where I grew up. I was sort of piecing my life together and also taking in other people's journey and incorporating that into the story. The next book, which we did a soft launch on a couple of years ago before COVID, You Are My Blue, which is a collaboration with a wonderful photographer by the name of Bibiana Wamatais out of Pauling. And Bibiana is phenomenal. She's also the co-founder of Inspiration Art Group International. And so we paired up together so I can write poems. I chose her photos that are tinted in blue. And I was just inspired by the blue color, different space in my life. And I think it's a good body of work. You know, it's a good body of work. I'm proud of it, you know, and I'm gonna add to it. But I was in a different headspace, you know. I think I was more into, I'm the poet. I see myself as a poet. I see myself as a spoken word artist, and I can pen this now and take whatever comes. I'm good with it. I'm good with it. You know, my mama's good with it. You know, everything goes down to my mama. If my mama's good with it, I'm good with it. You know, so I love my mom. I love my dad. My dad's not with me anymore, with us anymore. But yeah.
And we've talked about your essence a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, as you've gone from now I am a spoken word poet, how have you dyed or stained your words with your essence?
Back to that essence question.
Yeah.
That essence. Okay. Coming up. How has it stained it with my essence? I think just sort of connecting with people. You know, I like the human connection. Just connecting. I can't really explain it. It's hard to explain, but I feel you. You know, I feel you. I feel them in the audience. I feel them. You know, and sometimes I'll touch someone's hand and I really can't put it into words. And it's been with me ever since I was a little girl. I was that kid that in the neighborhood, if I saw someone doing harm towards someone else, we had a brownstone and there was this window and I was always looking out the window. And if I saw an altercation, I was darting outside and my mom's like, where are you going? I'm like, they're fighting, you know? You know, and I would just insert myself and then say, why are you doing this? I didn't understand it. You know, why would you want to hit her, you know, or why would you want to hit him, or, you know, I was the kid that would run and pull the fire alarm and say, because then you could talk to it. And I know you know nothing about that, but, you know, I would pull it and say, there are people fighting out here and you need to come right away. You know, you need to come right away. And because there's enough going on, and there's pain. You talked about community earlier, and you talked about people in our community who quite don't understand how to navigate something, because there's everyone. We all have lives. There's so much going on, and I get it. And if I can sort of take a little bit of pain from you, then that's what I'm going to do. You know, because I'm good. I have a beautiful, beautiful life, despite my challenges. I don't have all the money in the world. I'd certainly like more money, you know, because you can do more with more money, right? You can do more. You can do a lot more good work with it. You know, a lot more good work. It puts you at the negotiating table. You know, I always said, I don't know if I said this. I don't know if I said this to you the other day, but I said, if I get the money that I want, I'm going to walk into Poughkeepsie School District, and every student will have their own laptop, and every home will have free internet for that child. Every home in Poughkeepsie. And then I'm going to sit down and have a conversation with IBM to help make it happen, to restructure some things, you know? And so, you know, but that's what drives me. You know, it's not so much the fame, it's, you know, the money that comes with it, because you have to sit at the table to make some change. It's good to sit at the table and have the conversation, but then there's a whole nother side to it. There's a whole nother side to it, you know, to make the change at the table. And so I'm on a mission. I'm okay. And I just, whatever I can do to help you be okay, then that's our human connection. I love you for this.
Well, thank you for this. Poet Gold, our lightning rod. I just want to open up the floor to any questions from the audience for Poet. Does anyone have any questions?
So you gave a wonderful poem back at the annual meeting for the Arts Mid-Hudson, America, where I feel now. And I felt when you were performing that, you did an amazing job for it. Cadence, everything.
Thank you.
It was beautiful. But I felt like you expressed in that poem, you know, kind of the acknowledgement of the challenges that America has gone through throughout its history, and the challenges we are facing going forward, and how we need to rise up with each other in order to face these challenges. Do you still feel that kind of same hope that I heard in that poem? Or do you sometimes, as we see the news going on, think, we really just need to do better as a community?
I always, I heard a great word today from a gentleman by the name of Larry Raskin in one of the companies I'm associated with. And he said hopium. He said he was referencing, he says, you got to get hooked on hopium, you know? And he said, not just hopium, but then you want to put once again, some action behind it so that it becomes a reality. So yes, I do feel, now don't get me wrong, you know, my brother knows how to pick, you know, touch my buttons, push my buttons politically sometimes. He'll do it on purpose, you know, when we're on a phone conversation. He says, watch this, watch what I'm going to do to her, you know. And, but in the end, yes, I hold on to the hope. I hold on to the higher self in all of us. And if we can be honest with our individual fears and break through those individual fears as human beings, because we all have some level of fear. I mean, that's what racism is about, right? You know, that's what stereotyping is about, putting people in boxes. If we can have that moment of saying, I'm just afraid because you're different from me and I don't quite understand it, then that's a breakthrough. Then we can have more one-on-one conversations, we can have community conversations, and sort of stay in that space, sort of continue going, I am afraid because you're different from me, and I don't like being afraid. Being afraid makes us all uncomfortable. It is an uncomfortable space to be living in fear, but yet that fear can ultimately destroy us. Because it's when it really takes over you, we're not seeing the truth. We're not even seeing our own beauty. We're not recognizing how wonderful you are as a human being, or she is as a human being. And so I believe in working through our fears. I would not be here today had I been really afraid of my disease. I wouldn't have been here. And but I wanted to live more. The price of living is greater than my fear. You know, I want to love more than what I'm afraid of. And so it takes some personal work. And sometimes we fall into traps, you know, and you go, oh, no, that's that fear talking. That's that catching the attitude now, you know. I've been there, you know. I'm not perfect. I've gone on the Facebook and be like, and I was like, oh, you want to take that off now? You don't want to say that. So then I do it as an exercise. Boom, okay, that felt good. All right, you know. So, but thank you for your comment. I hope I answered your question.
No, you did.
Okay, all right. Yes, Jeff.
I'd like to ask you a question about young people. Seeing that you're being interviewed by someone that is slightly younger than you are.
Yes, but extremely talented.
Yeah, well, but it's at times, you know, around the city of Poughkeepsie, you know, you hear people complaining about our youth and the problems that they have, and, you know, but as you pointed out, like being optimistic, I mean, I see a lot of goodness there.
Yeah.
And young people that have a lot of capabilities, and you see something in them that you hope will come out, and you have doubts that it never will because of the way they're being brought up.
Right. And I'm glad you pointed that out, how they're being brought up. And this is not to beat up parents. You know, I'm a parent. This is not to beat up parents. There's no book, really. I mean, even though people make lots of money from it, but you know, but there's really no book that's going to really teach you. You know, because when you're in the moment, stuff happens, and you go, oh, I didn't read that in chapter 3, paragraph 4. You know, so. But with that said, Jeff, youth are sometimes a reflection of what's going on at home. I had a student express to me why they didn't do an assignment, and it was because something that the parent had said, and by right, you know, the parent was trying to protect their child, and I get that, and so, you know, I said, let's respect your parent's choice, but you did do part of the assignment, so let's step away and see how we can do it sort of out of the box. You know, that's, you know, it's an option. And so she wound up writing a beautiful poem based on some pictures that she saw. You know, there's always a backstory with a child. There's always a backstory. I think because sometimes we disconnect because we have so much going on. We're going to work, we're trying to pay our bills, we're trying to live our lives. You know, we're depending on which age you are, you may be taking care of your parents. You know, there's just a lot of things going on, and it's stressful. It's stressful. But at the same time, this is the future. You know, this is the future. And the sins of the parents, so to speak, sometimes weigh the future down. Because maybe as a parent, maybe I may not have the tool for something. And, you know, and I'm not, I love the parents. Sometimes I put hashtags. I do this for the youth. I do this for the parents. Because there needs to be programs for the parents, just like there are programs for the youth. You know, there needs to be programs for the youth and the parent together. But we have a tendency to think that if we pour it all into the youth and that they go home to parents that may not have the tools or maybe too stressed out, that may not be a sustainable plan long term. You know, maybe that youth might give up, perhaps, depending upon the situation. So I try not to give the youth too much of a hard time. I share with them, you know, my story of living with a chronic illness, and I tell them, you know, you may have to go someplace where you walk through a block and it's a bunch of gangs. I get it, you know, I get it. It's hard. Let's talk about that. What's that about? What's that like for you? What are you going home to? How can I support you? How can I serve you? What is that you need? And building that trust, not a one-off, it can't be, I'm showing up for the day. You know, that's like a part-time mom or dad, you know, I'm showing up for the day. Yes.
So you're talking about, you know, the youth and the parents' involvement. I see there's also society's involvement in every youth and how, you know, whether it's social media or whether it's even just policies made by the city or the county that you actually live in. Where does that fit into?
It's, you know, Sabrina, you know, it's hard. It really is. I mean, I'm not going to, you know, sugarcoat it. It's dealing with all of it can be challenging, but I try to just take my little piece. You know, I always say if I can touch one and that one touch 1,000. You know, someone touched Martin, someone touched Mother Teresa, someone touched Gandhi, someone touched Malcolm, someone touched Huey. You know, I may not be the one, but maybe you're the one. That if I can just pour something into you that helps transform your life or take you in a direction, that's where it starts. Being present for that individual, being present as much as we possibly can, so that you know that we respect you, we care for you deeply, you know, and we're present for you. And it's hard because youth today are dealing with a lot. The whole social media, which don't get me wrong, I think is, you know, I know that we tout it as being something terrible now, but it's not. It's just how you use it. It took me a while to get on Facebook and social media because I was like, my brother was like, no, get on, you'll meet a lot of people. I said, I don't need to meet more people. I got friends. Yeah, I don't need to be on here to meet people. I need to figure out how to use the tool. And so once I understood that I was going to build this new career, then I understood how I was going to enter the room. I didn't really want nonsense on my page. You can control that. You dictate based upon your presence. You know, you dictate if someone's going to show up at the party and throw up all over your floor. You know, you're in control of that. And so, you know, people know when they step into the room, no, I can't do that here. Yeah, I'm going to step outside, I'm about to puke. Okay, go outside and puke, it's okay. You control that. So when I approach social media, that's how I approached it. And I say the same thing with the students because, you know, unfortunately, what they do at 10 is probably going to come back and bite them when they get ready to go to college. And, which I really don't feel that they should be judged on what they put on social media at 10 when they get ready to go to college. But it's happening. It's happening. So
my mama told me you can't send a text message unless you want it on the front page of a newspaper, and you can't say anything in a public conversation unless you want it on a podcast.
Right.
That's what I have.
Right. I'm sure there's stuff out there that look like, oh, Public Gold said this. Okay, well, so be it. I'm a little older now, so you know.
Any more questions from the audience?
One more. Something that keeps getting stuck in my head, in working with the Poughkeepsie City School District. You know, our youth need to be leading the way forward. It's stuck in my head. They've got to lead us forward because we screwed things up. So we need to prepare them so that they can lead us out of the messes that we're in.
It's something I call the student will teach the teacher how to teach. You know, and I always, when I go into a room, I go in from that perspective. I go in, yes, there's an agenda that I have, yes. You know, I'm here, yes, to help you discuss violence in your community and what that looks like for you, and in the process of writing, let you know that there are alternatives, and so hopefully you'll never get to the gun. That's what we do, you'll never get to the gun. If you can recognize the different forms of violence you've already experienced. A lot of people talk about gun violence, but the gun is the last thing. They've already experienced so many levels of violence. When we act shocked, well, why did that happen? He seems so, or she seems so. That human being has been having violent experiences in their life internally for some time. And the gun was the last answer because maybe we missed everything else. So if you can sort of get the person talking about the many different forms of violence that they have experienced and be present in that, Allow them to communicate about that. Allow them to write about that through the arts, paint about it, sing about it. In the end, put a great performance together with it. Then maybe when they get in that situation, they'll walk away. They'll find value in their life and their dreams, and they'll say, you know what? It's okay, you got it. You got it. And they'll walk away. And that's, and they'll tell you how to get there. The student will teach the teacher how to teach. They'll tell you how to get there.
Yeah, I think it's really important to make space for young people to color lesson plans or color the experience of teaching. It's always good to have structure, but let them fill the space. And every time I've had that opportunity, I've grown so much more than someone just telling me what to do and how to do it this way. And I think I value the things that I do now. I value collective order. I value collaboration because an adult with all the know-how said, you can do it.
And it's something that we need in the world. I mean, think about it. When we go to job environments, what are the buzzwords? Being able to work as a team, being able to collaborate. So we reinforce that in schools and to prepare. But I hope they bring back trades. There used to be cars in schools and big trades. For kids. But thank you for that. Thank you for that because the policy question is hard. Especially in the educational system. It's I see a lot. And I don't know. I see a lot. And sometimes it does concern me. But I'm there to do what I do. And so I invest myself in that. I haven't quite yet said I'm going to take on the fight of policy. Don't have enough knowledge in that area to do that. Maybe I'll find somebody who's really, really smart and then pour my words into them and see what we come up with. But that's not my journey yet. So.
Well, there are people at Vassar, I'm sure, are waiting for thank you, everyone, for joining us for this interview. Thank you, Arts Mid-Hudson. Thank you, Poet.
Wasn't he fantastic? Please.
Yeah. Thank you for joining us in the virtual world. This experience has been a pleasure. And I hope we all have a new fire ignited in us, and let's see what we're going to burn. Thank you.